And that wasn't quite his real voice, any more than when I'm talking to you now. It's not quite the way I would talk if I were talking to you face to face. There are hesitations and things that just were not part of his normal way of talking. So when Gary Oldman is talking, he uses his hesitations in ordinary conversations or whatever. That's not quite the way he talked, you know. But all in all, they did a pretty good job. What really got to me is that Oliver Stone saw there were problems. He saw where things didn't match up. Why would an ordinary Marine be tested for the Russian language, for heaven's sakes? That's a giveaway. We were their enemies. Nobody's going to learn Russian unless they needed it. Marines are not going to go and test somebody. And again, Tracy Parnell in this interactive timeline says Oswald requests to be tested in the Russian language. No, he didn't request it. He was, obviously, they're not going to give him a test. They made him take the test. So you have all these inconsistencies. A lot of this comes out in the movie. Oliver Stone, I give him kudos. He did a great job in showing where the problems were. There are a few mix-ups here and there, but all in all, it's a great job. He was a great man to do it.
In the last conversation you had with Lee was, yeah. It was, if I remember correctly, was the day before or 2 days before the assassination? It was,
well, he called me and it was November 20th when he called real late at night. It actually turned to November 21st as we were speaking. Kennedy was killed on the 22nd, so you can see what we're talking about. Lee knows that if he leaves, he can save his life. If he stays, he says there will be one less bullet aimed at Kennedy, because he would have been replaced by somebody who would have shot at Kennedy. Would have shot at him. He pretended that he would have shot at him. For a long time, he thought that he had penetrated the group there. Near the end, he believed that he had been lured into it, on purpose. There were too many things. He said every time he met somebody, it was somebody he hadn't met before. And, they give fake names and things like that. And you don't do this unless you're slated to die. They're not going to go and show you a whole bunch of people unless they know you're not going to survive. You see what I mean? They're not going to show these various people unless they know that you're never going to be able to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. They knew he wasn't going to be able to say anything, so it didn't matter to them. It was almost like they were throwing in his face.
Yeah, so they're showing him a lot of people. That doesn't mean they trusted him to leave. That showed that they were going to get rid of him. He would not survive. He was a dead man walking. He knew it. He stuck it out. He went. I loved him. We cried our heads off. We cried. This is a man who would cry. He wasn't that mean and tough and everything like that. He cried. He didn't want to die. But he didn't run either. And he didn't betray any of the, by saying who he really was. He didn't betray them.
And that's why I have respect for Lee, because the story, the monster version that people think they know is not the real Lee Oswald. And once you understand the real Lee Oswald and you get to know the real Lee Oswald, you realize that he was probably the kind of guy you'd like to go sit down and have a beer with or have a cup of coffee with. And
he gave up smoking and drinking because he became CIA. He gave up smoking and drinking when he became a spy. He didn't drink anymore. In fact, Marina Oswald is on record saying that she didn't like the fact that he's in the Warren Commission. In the very first interview, is Marina Oswald. It's her first interview, and she says that she was upset because he wouldn't drink or smoke like she did. You got this man. He doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke. By the way, he doesn't swear. Now, but he will pretend he's drinking when has to do something. By the way, he had a number of lovers. He was quite a lover. This thing about that he was not a good lover, that's baloney. Absolute baloney. When he was in Japan, he had a girlfriend. It's on record, he was dating women from the Queen Bee. Queen Bee was a very expensive escort service going on there at the Queen Bee, all right? And one date with one of them would have used up his whole entire $80 Marine pay. It's impossible. They would, it cost $50, $60 for one night, and he's seen with them all the time. He even brought one of the girls to the base. he gets a venereal disease, and the doctor puts there in the line of duty. Now they're trying to say they did that for everybody. That's not true. He got a venereal disease because he was getting information. There is my friend Lola and I have put together some movies about Lee at YouTube. If you go to Lola with a number 4, and then JVB, and then another 4, and it's LHO. So it'd be Lola for JVB for LHO. If you go to YouTube there, you'll see 5 or 6 videos we put together showing Lee's career and who he really was. And that's free. You don't have to buy my book. The book is important because it's going to give you the truth. And the book, imagine, I cannot sign any of them. We could not get reviews. The Publishers Weekly would not review the book at all. Jesse Ventura did say it was that book and JFK and the Unspeakable were his favorite conspiracy books. He called the book phenomenal. And if you read it, I'm hoping that you'll get a picture of Lee Oswald that will forever be in your mind. You'll know who he really was. You'll understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. You know, if I had said Lee Oswald had killed Kennedy, I'd be a rich woman. Instead, I've lost my jobs. I've been in hospital 5 times in 5 years from so-called accidents. I've had to move overseas because of death threats. I can't even live in one country more than 3 months at a time. So, of course, I'm giving you this interview, and I won't be able to do another one for a long time because it's not that easy.
Yeah, and I can attest to the fact that Judyth is not blowing smoke. You know, everything she's telling you about what she's gone through is 100% accurate, and it is very cloak and daggerish to get in touch with her because of what has happened to her. And you know, it's her safety is of the utmost importance because she comes out, she taught, and she does, that puts her in the spotlight, and that's courageous, but she should not be expected to, be, she should be, nobody should expect that she should be very, it shouldn't be easy to get in touch with her because of what she knows.
Was it easy to get in touch with me, sir? Was it easy?
No, it wasn't the easiest thing in the world, no, and I have to honestly say I didn't expect that it would be because of what you know and what you've talked about. In fact, Judyth, I didn't think I'd be able to get in touch with you because of the information that you've come out with. I wasn't even sure if when I first started when I first started looking into how I could interview you, I wasn't even sure if you were still willing to do interviews and stuff. And then I realized that I talked to Jim Fetzer, and he was like, "Oh no, I'll see what I can do," and he helped me get in contact with you. And I have to say, you are one of the bravest people I've ever met, and you are really an awesome individual. I mean, just the courage you have and the tenacity that you have, that you love Lee so much that you're willing to go through this to clear his name. Nobody does that for anybody anymore. You're an example of humanity, Judyth, and I have to say that it gives me hope in my heart for humanity when I see people that have the courage that you do. And so I have to personally applaud you for what you do, and I thank you for writing your book and coming out.
Well, I thank you for being there. That you're as young as you are, that gives me hope. Imagine because when we're going to die, we're not going to. I'm 68. Oh, I never thought I'd be overseas and not be able to see my children, my grandchildren. My youngest daughter had her first baby. I could not be there. My mother died when I was in the political asylum program. Boy, when I went to political asylum, that was something else. And I was not accepted. Nobody from the United States who's a non-combatant can be accepted into political asylum, but they did protect me for over 10.5 months. God bless them. They put a bunch of junk out there, anything that would, they told me just basically send any amount of junk they wanted, but privately they went into what was going on, and they did help me so that my family and my friends could get together with donations and everything else. That's what keeps me going. I have a chance at least to speak out, and even though I have to move from country to country, thank God, people understand that I would come back to the United States if I could. I love my country. I love my children. I love my grandchildren. I can't see them.
Make sure, tell the listeners exactly what you've been through, like the personal sacrifices, so they understand.
Oh no. And what happened to me is not important. The fact that I could still speak and I'm alive is what's important. The fact that you care, that there's a chance that you people will not only read the book, but you're going to. By the way, I don't get very much money from the books. It's not just possible. Especially with the U.S. dollar where it is, right now.
You'd be better off selling it in euros.
Exactly. I have 25% less value to the dollar now than it was when I first came over here. Can you imagine what's happening to our country? I care about our country. And I tell you right now, the very key is the Kennedy assassination and following it. If only people understand, they've got to eat better. They've got to try and do whatever they can to protect their environment, because the food, the water, and the air in America is just about enough to kill you. Tell you, it just really gets to me. The fact that so many people do not have adequate medical care. Everything's going backward. That was not the American dream. We're not supposed to be working 60 hours a week. It's supposed to have gone the other direction. We're supposed to get more civilized, not turned back into servants. It's breaking my heart to see what's happened to our country. So part of this is because I love the country, but the big part is I love him. And I'm sick of the lies that have been told about him. To my dying breath, I tell you, I swear, this is a man who loved his country, a good man. He gave his life for his country.
Lee, from my research, was definitely more than this monster that they've made him out to be. And again, that's one of the things that pushed me was, I find out, I respect people like Jim Garrison. Okay. Yep. And when I see Jim Garrison in multiple interviews and papers he wrote and just speaking engagements anywhere, and he always said, when questioned about Oswald, he always said Lee was a good individual. He was the kind of, he was a good man.
Just wanted to be a good Marine.
Exactly. That's what he said. He wanted to be a good Marine.
Yep.
And I'm a veteran myself.
So close to the truth.
I'm a veteran myself.
Yes, and that impresses me. You have experienced yourself the consequences of an evil situation where when you have wars that are supposedly to protect us and actually have caused more enemies, and I live overseas and I know whereof I speak, caused more enemies to our country than anything else could possibly do. It is to go and keep bombing other countries, interfering with their destinies and so on, instead of protecting our own borders and staying out of that,
Well, for me to find out that this guy was a good Marine, and he was, to me, he was. If you've ever heard of the organization called the Oath Keepers, Lee would be considered an Oath Keeper.
He'd be.
If people understood, and I'm an Oath Keeper myself. So for me to say that I'm not just saying that because I'm like, blah blah blah. No, Lee would be considered an Oath Keeper. This man gave his life to defend his oath to the Constitution and protect the country and the citizens of this country and the president against what he saw, what was coming down the pike.
When I first spoke out in 1999, I said that Lee tried to, he did everything he could to save the president. You have no idea what disbelief. Little by little, it's changing. This year I received photographs from people, and I hope it will continue, where they would send me pictures where they had placed roses on Lee's grave. The message is getting through.
That's good. And I'm sure every time you realize that probably is uplifting for your heart, because and realize that people see through the lies and that Lee is not as vilified as he once was.
David Atlee Phillips, who was Lee's handler, is on record saying that he had the opportunity and pleasure of urinating on Kennedy's grave.